All right, here we go. This is a model based off a painting vehicle, a vehicle in a painting by Peter Andrew Jones, probably around 1976 or so. When we had a giant wave of awesome British artists doing cover art and book jacket work. And that was my first attempt at this print. I just shot it to the printer, split it in half, and shot it to the printer to see what it would do, and it failed miserably. And this is a revisit of it, chopping it up into a million different parts, and then we're going to go ahead and create that cockpit. So I took a couple different detours with this effort, and setting up that cockpit was not necessarily my intention or something I even thought about doing. I wanted to set that color correctly, at least come close to it or approximate it, get a rough idea of that cockpit as it looks in that image or that painting that I'm using as my guide for this whole process. I didn't have any khaki or tan color that it appears to be, so I just used these paints. They aren't Tester's enamel, but they were kind of like a water-based alternative. Thought I was buying Testers, but I guess I grabbed the wrong box and got that paint instead, and I'm mixing it up. I'm using a magic marker just to do it. And really what I was just kind of hoping for with this whole project is to get something off the printer that I could see or have in 3D space based off that painting, because I thought it would be kind of a cool challenge to see that in real life. And I didn't necessarily intend to create a super duper finished piece. I mean, I have gone as far as airbrushing some of these things to do like a real detailed model build, but I'm not a model kit builder like I used to be, and I'm not a good figure painter. I didn't even intend to get this far or do this much. I just wanted to, like I said, make a physical placeholder of this thing. But I went a little kooky, got a little crazy, and started doing this. So it does end or lend a overall sense of that model a little better from that scene. But I'm not, like you can see, I'm not the greatest figurine painter, not like some of those guys who do their Warhammer minis by any stretch. I'm just messing around, but having fun. There we go. I don't even have, like, these paints don't cover very good, and I don't have a good face paint or a color for the face, so it just kind of looks like a gray version of whatever I'm putting on there, because it's real watery. It doesn't seem to adhere to that resin plastic very good. And those figures were done on the resin printer. I do have the model established, so if I want to revisit it and do a final piece and spend another month on something like this, I can go ahead, but that's probably not going to happen for a while. So I am happy just to have gotten this far down the line. All right, put those guys in there. It's starting to look pretty decent. I'm getting there. All right, now here we go with the overall final build. I got all the parts laid out and printed. When I laid them out, they printed pretty good. They had a good footprint on the build plate, and I didn't have to redo it a whole bunch of times. However, as you can see, I did the multicolor print with several of the pieces, and of course that is going to slow it down tremendously. So I think overall all those parts took about 3 weeks from beginning to end. But maybe that's not completely fair, because it's not, the printer wasn't running consecutively for all those days. I would take a break when I had to go to work or whatever and let it finish, and sometimes I had to adjust some of these pieces. Anywho, we're gonna finish slapping this main cockpit thing together. Not sure what to call it. The primary top body, that top portion, and that cockpit or the cabin just kind of pops in there really nicely. I didn't have to worry about resizing that too much. We'll get those seats in there, and when I pop those figures in there, everything kind of lined up nicely insofar as the scale of the people and the seats. I there were these rearview mirrors. You can see them on the painting if you can zoom in on there or get a close view of that screen where I have that in the corner. They are these little rearview mirrors that they actually came out on the print. They're just held on there by the most tiniest of connectors, a little rod that would hold on that mirror, and the printer actually tried to do it. It did something that was somewhat resembled that rearview mirror, but it was kind of ultimately it was more of a mess than it was worth, so I cut them off. If I did those again, I would do them on the resin printer, because that can do that tiny little detail without a whole lot of effort. And right now I'm putting together that undercarriage piece. This slice, this way I broke it up, seemed to handle it the best. Didn't slide around the printer, didn't cause a lot of failures, and it's kind of sturdy. But I would ultimately at some point want to, I say this in some of those other models, is try to come up with a key system so I don't have to just super glue flat surface on the flat surface, but there's a more accurate way to align these things, because it is deceptively, or it looks simple to just throw those on there and stick them together, but you line up the front end and you notice the back end is all out of whack, and when you got the super glue on there and it's dried and it's too late, they kind of rip it apart again, and sometimes it destroys the print. And we'll get that undercarriage on there and make sure I don't get any super glue in the axles, because I'll try to keep those wheels rolling. I don't know how this thing would actually turn in the real world if there were, I mean, I know it's just a fantastical painting. It's a vehicle. It's not real. But I think about how would that actually be able to steer. Maybe it would lean like a motorcycle, because it's a bicycle. It's a bicycle essentially, right? It's only got those two wheels, and then you'd lean in the given direction you wanted to go. Or maybe like a skateboard, they would squish in, creating an acute angle in the direction it was turning towards, where the wheels would pinch in towards. And I broke it. I broke that one arm. I took it apart. Now I have to just sit there, and I used too much super glue and I gotta hold it forever. Alright. That back fin on there. So, and this piece, or that painting seems to have, I mean, it's almost absurd, I guess, the design, but it has these signature elements to it. Like one of them is that window. Oh, and that window was something I struggled with a little bit. I didn't print it. I actually came up with a different solution that going forward I could use again for windows and windshields, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But this piece seemed to have like these signature elements, and one of them is those windows. The other one was those figures, because I didn't necessarily intend to do those figures, but they almost seemed like they were required for the overall project. And I'm going to put some controls in that too. That was another after effect. This tube, that crazy stick that comes out the front, I don't know, it looks like a refueling tube from a fighter jet. Actually printed out amazing with 3 colors. I was really impressed with the outcome of that little piece. So I'm going to put some controls in there. That guy in the picture is like holding a joystick, and then the girl seems to be driving. He's holding that. Maybe that's a big laser sticking out the front. And that's the window. So that is, I formed that off of those. I printed an initial window out of PLA transparent and PETG transparent, and they were not transparent after it was all said and done. So I got a box of screws with the transparent box, like you get at Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever hardware store you go to, and they sell you an odd number of machine screws, because if you need 8, they're going to sell you 7, so you get 2 boxes. But I'm complaining now. Anyway, you get that box, and I chopped it up, and I was able to heat it up with a hot air gun, and it melted real easy and formed over the top of that PLA print, or the PETG print, and was able to shape it pretty good. I could probably do a better job if I came up with a better form and wore some gloves or something because I burnt the Jeezies out of my thumb like a dummy, all in the name of getting a clear window. But I got it, and here we go. It almost seemed like I had to get it. I could not have a clear window. I'm gonna work on getting that archway over the glass. I think, yeah, all in all, this was a almost a month-long project. Right? Yeah, if I do that window again, I got to figure out a way to like that is it seemed like a really good solution at least for that, but I got to figure out a way to at least for what I was doing there, it seemed like a good solution, but I got to figure out a way to get that smoothed out to get it a little more without all those bumps and flaws, I guess. And that little piece too was all printed out. That printed out pretty amazing, and it's just like a hair thin little piece of plastic that sticks out for that tube, or I don't know what it is, antenna wire that sticks out horizontal over the cabin. It really could break off easy. So that's the finished piece, and if you stuck around this long and watched, I greatly appreciate it. And this one's for you, Peter Andrew Jones, wherever you might be out there. Thank you, everybody.